Hello and welcome to another episode of Page to Screen, the series where I read a book and then watch the movie to compare the differences and also try and get myself to watch more movies because I am terrible for that. However, in the case of this episode, I have actually already seen the movie. I know I have committed a sin. It is what it is. But actually it was a good thing because watching this movie made me interested in a book that I probably never would have wanted to read otherwise. And that book is Annihilation by Jeff Vandermeer. I watched this movie, I want to say like 3 years ago, somewhere around there, and I completely fell in love with it. I thought it was so incredible and so my kind of movie. I'd of course heard of this book and that movie before, but I had an idea in my head of what it was about, and it was not something that I thought I was going to like. Turns out I was completely wrong. The plot is not even relatively close to what I thought it was going to be, and the movie was cool as hell. So I really want to see what that's like in book form. So I'm going to be starting this book today, and then I'll rewatch the movie once I finish this up. And luckily for me, I do have a terrible memory, and I've only seen the movie once, so there is a lot of this movie that I don't remember. So in terms of a synopsis, this is a climate change sci-fi about this team of scientists who are going into this area of, I think, the US that's kind of been covered by this purpley cloud. At least in the movie, that's what it's like. I have no idea if the book is the same. But in this area, anyone who's ever gone in has never come back out. And the whole area has been reclaimed by nature. It's quite cosmic and mind trippy. And the book follows these 4 scientists who go into this area trying to figure things out, and some cosmic chaos ensues. The movie was incredible. It was so beautifully made. It was absolutely stunning. I've heard the writing in this book is very beautiful as well, so I'm looking forward to finding out for myself. It's also a lot shorter than I thought it was going to be. I know it's a series, but I thought the first book itself was going to be like 500 pages, and it is very much not that. This will be my first book by him, so I'm looking forward to finding out how I like his writing. But yeah, I'm going to get started on this one, and I'll let you know once I have some thoughts on it. Alright, it's been about a week since last we spoke, and I finished Annihilation a couple days ago. I have some thoughts on it. I really enjoyed this book. I thought it was so interesting. I was really surprised by the writing style. I did not expect Jeff Vandermeer's writing to be that flowery and descriptive and beautiful. I think I expected it to be a bit more kind of dry, and I think with the main character being a biologist, it definitely did have that kind of scientific feel to it, but at the same time the descriptions of the landscape were just beautiful. I could really picture what things looked like. Well, was definitely influenced by the fact that I've already seen the movie. Despite that, the image that Jeff Vandermeer was able to paint in my head was perfection. It was so beautiful in my head, and that was a pleasant surprise that his writing style would be able to evoke such imagery. So definitely a great time with that one. In terms of the plot, I had a little bit of a hard time following it, but not in a bad way. I think that was the intention, and it was definitely successful. This was a bit of a challenging read to follow in a way where it was confusing, and you just kind of had to go with it and see where things went, even if you didn't really know what was going on in the meantime. It kind of felt like I was joining the characters on this fever dream nightmare sort of thing and discovering all of the nonsense along with them. It was really fun, it was enjoyable, and yeah, completely unexpected. I don't know what I was expecting from this book, but it definitely wasn't that. And I'm not surprised that I had a good time with it because of how much I liked the movie, but I'm also not surprised. You know what I mean? I think I was expecting this to be more like dude bro sci-fi, and it was not at all that, which I'm happy for. I also really liked the format. This was told as the biologist's journal that she was writing as part of the expedition, so it kind of feels like you are the next expedition finding her journal and reading it, which was a really interesting way to go about it that I also really enjoyed. So overall, this was definitely a successful read. Now for the movie, I'm not sure when I'm planning on giving it a rewatch. I might do that tonight. Maybe tomorrow. I'll do it sometime this week probably, but once I do so, I will let you know my thoughts on it. Alright, so I have watched, or I guess rewatched, Annihilation, and I have some thoughts. First and foremost, I don't think it's fully fair to compare both the book and the movie, because even though the movie is based on the book, I do feel like they are kind of completely separate entities, and that's the case for a lot of adaptations. Even though it's the same story, they are told in different media, so of course that's going to completely change the story of it. But I think that's especially the case with Annihilation, because these are kind of completely different stories aside from the very, very basic plot. So first of all, of course, I loved this movie. I loved it the first time. I think I loved it even more the second time. This was truly a phenomenal movie that I cannot get over. I can't believe how beautiful it is. The visual effects of the mutations in this movie especially were just stunning. Even the parts that were more grotesque and scary were still weirdly beautiful in like a gross way. Even, you know, this giant bear that has like its jawbones hanging out and teeth everywhere and spit flying everywhere, even that was strangely beautiful in its own way. The music choice, phenomenal. The characters were all great. The acting was really good. The tension between them all was perfection. I think this is one of the best movies that I've ever seen. I think it's so well done. But yeah, comparing it to the book, I took some notes so I wouldn't forget my thoughts on it. So the first thing that I noted was that the main character in the book versus the movie are completely different characters. In the book, she's very quiet and reserved. She's like the most classic scientist character that you'll ever see. She is very like not emotional, or she is, but her emotions are kind of buried deep below everything else, so you don't get much of that on the page. Whereas the movie, the character is not even the same at all. Like, she's very open, she's very emotional, she's a pretty like normal woman. So I thought that in itself was very interesting. But then the side characters as well, so the team of scientists that she's with in Area X, they also have a lot more personality. In the book, you didn't really get a whole lot of who they were outside of the very brief things that the main character would think of them. But with the movie, we're getting more than just the main character's thoughts, directly what she's seeing and choosing to write down. The perspective of the movie is more omniscient. So we're seeing these characters even when they're not being directly observed by the main character. So you get a lot more of their personality. There's a lot more banter between them. We see those quieter moments between the action. There's a lot more to their characters than there was in the book. They're not nearly as, you know, suspicious of each other as they were in the book. There's a sense of trust and friendship and camaraderie between them that was missing from the book. Not missing. I don't wish that it was there, because I think the book did a good job in portraying that kind of dynamic. But it's just interesting how the two are so completely opposite in that respect. And that really made me care more about the characters. I liked the characters in the book and I was interested in them. I was curious about them, but you really didn't get much about them, and that not knowing I found added to the story of the book, because the whole book was just this one big unanswered question, and that was the beauty of it. And so these characters were just part of that unanswered question, whereas in the movie, because it's a visual media, you kind of have to care about everything that you see on screen, or at least the parts that are important like that. So it made sense to have the characters have a lot more depth and be more interesting and be people that we had to care about, and I think they did a fantastic job with that. I loved the actors, and again, their dynamics between everybody. I thought the chemistry between everybody was really well done. They all worked well together, and especially in moments of tension, I think they did a fantastic job as a team. So that was really interesting. And then just in terms of the tension in general, there is of course tension in the book, but it feels more surreal and dreamlike, which makes the tension feel like it's not that important because you feel like you're dreaming, which is not at all a critique of the book. I think that's a really cool skill that Jeff Vandermeer has, to make me feel like I'm dreaming even though I knew that I was reading a book. That was fantastic. But then the movie has less of that dreamlike quality to it, and there's a lot more tension. So it's interesting how those two things kind of swapped places. I love a good surreal cosmic time. So for me, I personally preferred the kind of dreamlike surreal feel to it. So that feeling was missing a little bit for me in the movie, but I did really like what the tension added to the story of this one. In terms of the differences of the plot, they were like totally different stories, and I did wonder kind of halfway through the movie if maybe the movie was all of the books of the series combined into one, because aside from the very beginning, like the basic premise of it, the rest of that movie was not the same as the book, because like the majority of the book is centered on the underground tower, and that was not even present in the movie at all, which is really interesting. The main character's whole thing is being obsessed with this tower that everybody else is calling a tunnel, but in her mind it's a tower, and she's completely obsessed with getting down there and seeing the writing on the walls and reading what it says and figuring out who's writing it. And that is completely omitted from the movie, which is also not a critique of the movie, because I loved the plot of the movie as well. well. I thought it was a lot more engaging. I feel like with a book, you kind of have the space for things to be a little bit more boring. You have the time to dwell on more mundane things. So spending, 50 pages out of a 150-page book just walking down a staircase and reading words on a wall is a cool thing to do, but that would have been extremely boring as a movie, so it made sense why they had to change things like that. And I really liked the direction that they changed it to be to. And then my final note on kind of my thoughts on the differences between the book and the movie was that the characters felt a lot more rational in the movie. In the book, from the moment they get into Area X, they are completely obsessed with it. From the moment that they step foot into this area, it feels like they're being possessed by it. And that was a fascinating look into the psyche of these characters, especially, of course, the main character, because she is the one that we're reading from. So the entire book, all of the thoughts that we have as the reader is directly affected by what she's thinking. She's kind of commanding our thoughts on the scenery around us. We're seeing through her eyes. All of the opinions on the other characters are her opinions on the characters. So she's completely this unreliable narrator because you have no idea how much of her mind is being possessed by the area and by the mutations. So by the end of the book, you have no idea if any of this is true or if it was just her becoming more and more irrational as the book went on. Whereas in the movie, they are a lot more put together. They're more calm. They work better as a team. They work better under pressure and during times of high stress, like being chased by a friggin' bear through the woods at night. Like, there's much less of that sense of possession and obsession with the area. That definitely does come in towards the end of the movie, but the first, I would say most of the movie, actually, they were like fairly rational. So for me, that was, again, missing a little bit from the movie. I would have liked a little bit more of that because that was my favorite part of the book. I loved seeing them just completely unraveling in such a short period of time, or what to them felt like a very short period of time. Who knows how long it actually took place over. And yeah, just overall, I found the book to be a lot more weird and strange than the movie was. The movie had its fair share of strangeness, and I appreciate it for that, but the book was a lot weirder, and I liked it. So as for what I liked better, I honestly don't know. I think most of the time it's a clear winner that the book is almost always better than the movie in pretty much every single case. But in this case, because they're so different and they're both so successful at what they were individually doing, I think it's kind of a tie. They're both such fantastic examples of a book and of a movie that it's hard to pick one over the other, because again, like I was saying earlier, written media and visual media are completely different art forms, and I would say that both of these are excelling in their individual fields, so it can't really compare the two of them together. But I had a really good time with both of these ones. I can't wait to read the rest of the series and read more books by Jeff Vandermeer. I'm working on a vlog right now where I do an author taste test of Jeff Vandermeer books, so look out for that at some point. But I'm very much looking forward to deep diving into Jeff Vandermeer as an author. I really enjoyed this one. This was a really good place to dip my toes in with his work, and I can't wait to see what else he has in store for me. And of course, I'm happy to have watched the movie again. I love this movie to pieces. But yeah, I think that'll do it for this vlog. Let me know if you have read or watched Annihilation and what you thought of it. But in the meantime, thank you as always for watching. I appreciate you. I hope you're having a great day, and I'll catch you in the next video.